The following is a local resident producers program. The program content is the sole responsibility of the producer and does not necessarily reflect the views or policies of CATV2, Oshkosh Community Access Television, the City of Oshkosh, the Oshkosh Cable Television Advisory Commission, or Time Warner Cable.
Hi everyone, and welcome to another edition of Eye on Oshkosh. I'm Cheryl Hentz, along with former Oshkosh Mayor and City Councilwoman Melanie Bloechl. On Tuesday, April 6th, voters in the City of Oshkosh will be electing people to a number of positions, and that includes 3 seats on the Oshkosh Common Council. Now, 2 of those seats are being sought by incumbents, Frank Tower and Paul Esslinger. Paul will be joining us a little bit later in this half hour, actually in the hour segment. But we are also being joined during this half hour by a newcomer to city politics, a gentleman by the name of Burk Tower, and you are seeking the seat being vacated by Mayor Steve Hentz or whomever.
Any one of the 3.
but there is one available seat because Steve Hentz is vacating.
Right.
So welcome, Burk. Thank you very much for being here.
Pleased to be here.
We appreciate it. Why don't you start by telling us a little about yourself and why you're seeking a seat on City Council?
Okay, really a little bit in the way of background. I came to Oshkosh some 27 years ago. I was born and raised in Cincinnati, Ohio, and lived in Lexington, Kentucky, and in Bloomington, Indiana, and then went back to Lexington, and then came up here to join the university. I've been on the faculty ever since then. Throughout the time I've been here, I've been involved in one activity or another. Started out very early in the game, believe it, involvement. I was a PTA president. Got involved in a little political activity back then when they were looking at closing schools back during the early 1980s. And then over the years, been involved in a number of other things. One of my biggest activities has tended to be the United Way, which I've held a number of positions there, really for some 25 years. I was on a couple of committees for OCDC back during the 1980s. Been involved with junior achievement. It's really the reason I wanted to get involved in politics was I've always believed in involvement. And some of my other types of involvement have kind of come to an end. So it was basically looking for a new area in which might be able to have some impact on the community. And Steve Hentz's seat was up. And so there appeared to be an opportunity on the City Council.
What you had mentioned your involvement with some things that had to do with OCDC. OCDC, of course, is the Oshkosh Commercial Development Corporation, and they are a division of, or a arm of, the Oshkosh Chamber of Commerce. Where do you stand on, this Chamber of Commerce, Burk, is, as you know, very politically motivated. They have their own political action committee, that kind of thing. Where do you stand on a lot of the issues that they are taking a very active voice in?
Well, I think the Chamber does a number of positive things for the community. And some things that I would have an interest in and be on the positive side is downtown redevelopment is an issue that I do have an interest in. Fundamentally also anything that supports business in the community in terms of particularly small business. I think it's important that we have a strong economic base. We're facing some tough budgetary problems as we look into the future. And one of the keys is being strong economically. Sure. And I think that the Chamber takes an active role in that. Take an active role also, another thing I believe in, and that's development of our youth in the community and development of people who want to get involved in city government and be involved in the city. I think Leadership Oshkosh, which they're involved with, the youth leadership program, the new program called Propel for young professionals. So. Those are things that
Sure,
I believe in.
I know Melanie wants to jump in here, but she's making
Right,
us
no,
fast and
I'm
furious here.
taking less, go right ahead.
But there's one question that I want to ask, because I think historically one of the things that we've seen is that when obviously the chamber endorses candidates, and one of the things we've historically seen is when they endorse a candidate, those candidates tend to, if they're elected, always, for the most part, vote pro the way the chamber would like them to vote. And the reason I bring this up is, you know, you've mentioned that you're for downtown redevelopment, you're for things that are pro-business. Would you be one of those chamber supporters where you are, if they say, gosh, we like this, you're going to vote that way?
No, I don't think so at all.
Okay.
You just asked me about the chamber, and I see the chamber, its contribution to the community tends to be in the business area, has been in the downtown development. And I do believe in the development and looking ahead, because I think we have to prepare for the future of Oshkosh at some point in time. And I think the future, in some ways, a key is going to be having an area that we can really identify as Oshkosh and be something unique. So that's something they support, it's something I support. In general, in terms of their views, it would depend upon a particular issue. I tend to be pretty independent.
So if there was an issue where you've got a business development that wants to go into an area that it may cause some potential problems for private neighbors, you know, individual households, homeowners, that kind of thing. And I realize it's a very abstract kind of question because you don't have a set of particulars in front of you, but just in general, am I hearing you correctly then? You're saying that you would not, just because it's pro-business, you would not support it, you would take the neighbors into consideration in your deliberations?
Very definitely. I think that's the role of somebody who sits on city council to look at
I think it is too, but
to look at the big picture.
See, yeah.
But I believe in economic development as being a core, but I think in terms of the city, it's not only economic development. I think we have to do a number of things in the neighborhoods. One is protect and develop the neighborhoods, have some ideas in that area. Because I think in this day and age when we're facing a different kind of environment out there, neighbors aren't as close as they used to be.
Right.
Neighborhoods aren't as tight as they used to be. That's kind of a shame. And if we're going to have a good city to live in and to work in, the living part of it goes on in the neighborhood. So I think what you do when you have an issue that comes up is you look at all sides.
And you balance neighborhoods and
you balance neighborhoods,
business.
you balance development, you balance whatever happens to be there. So I think the idea is to talk to people, get their views, and see what both sides have to say, and then you make a judgment.
Terrific.
I think, you know, in the best interest of the city.
Burk, you stated that you are on the faculty of the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh. What is your position held on the faculty?
Well, right now, professor of management and entrepreneurship at the university, and
I didn't know we had one of those positions at the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh.
Well, it's in the management area, and I'm teaching entrepreneurship courses now, small business management courses. That's the reason I have that particular interest in that association. So I've done a lot of work with businesses and bring student groups into businesses within the community. So I've had that kind of tie. Over the years, I've held a number of positions at the university. When I first came, I was involved with the graduate program. Associate Dean for the graduate program, which was a regional program, partnership program. I've been a department chair, marketing management, human resources when we had it. I was Associate Dean in charge of academic programs within the College of Business. I helped put together a program called the Wisconsin Family Business Forum, which I don't know whether either of you heard of that?
I've heard of it, yes. I've heard of it.
It's really a partnership arrangement that we have with a number of other organizations within the Valley that primarily focus on family business types of issues, and family businesses get involved with it, and we do a lot of programming to deal with the family business issues. So that's a piece of what I do. I've been involved, and I've handled all the personnel for the College of Business. So
one of the things that you stated that you were involved in the 1980s was OCDC, and because of your background with this entrepreneurship and small business management, if you had to give a grade to OCDC for the job that they've done thus far, what would that grade be?
Over, a long period of time.
Well, you've been involved
well,
since 1980. It's now
well, really,
2004.
I haven't been as tightly involved back then. There was a woman named Kathleen Strawhacker was here who was doing a lot of work with small businesses at that time. I think they do a good job. I don't know, B+ are always more things that you can do. I think they've always had people who've been interested in working hard and supporting businesses. There's always more that can be done.
Could I just ask one thing?
Sure.
I don't want you to think I'm picking on you. Your voice
okay.
is trailing off very much toward the end, and I think they're probably having trouble hearing you in the control room. And we've got things running in here that are making it a little hard. If you could just speak up just a little bit for us.
I'm a little hoarse, so I'm trying to.
Oh.
Oh, hang on. Let me take a
All right. Well,
drink
we'll
of
try not
water
to
here.
make you talk too much. Go ahead, Mel.
Okay. With being an advocate for small businesses, one of the things that has just come before the council was the Breathe Free Oshkosh proposal, where this group wanted to, and still does, wants to ban smoking in small businesses, restaurants in particular. What would have been your decision in that proposal?
At this point, as I've indicated to both groups already, I've heard from both groups at one time or another.
I had no doubt in my mind.
And a whole host of other people.
No doubt.
And I'm really not taking a public position, because if I said what it was before, that would have soon to be the public position. The council has voted on this once. There's going to be a referendum.
Correct.
Actually, I think unfortunate in some ways, there's going to be kind of two kinds of referendum, which will make it difficult at times for the voters. So the people are basically going to get to make a decision there. And the role of someone on council really is to go with whatever decision is there at that point, I think. One concern I have, and the reason I really haven't taken a public position, I don't want this to become a one-issue election, which is really potentially a danger, because that's going to be it's a very emotional issue, because of strong feelings on both sides. And that issue's over here. And for council, I think there are a lot of other things involved. And the role of the council then is going to be for a period of time at least, to work with whatever comes out of it. If it goes through and we have smoke-free restaurants, there are going to be some issues for the city to deal with. If it goes the other way, I think it'll probably sit for a couple of years, and probably should after.
And potentially there's another role that could happen here, is where both referenda pass, the city attorney has to kind of do his due diligence and determine which one of those referenda have the most votes, or which is most compelling of an argument, and the council will be forced to either embrace his decision or fight his decision, which, if you're an elected official, could be you. And that's why I think it's important that people know where you stand, because that is a real potential. That's one of the reasons that the Breathe Free Oshkosh people are concerned about dual referenda being on the ballot at the same time, is that, and you stated yourself, you think it could be difficult and confusing, but you could potentially be put in the position as a council member to either have to embrace a city attorney's decision or go against it based on whatever your feelings are about this issue. And just making the statement that you don't want to take a public position is probably not, it's kind of disingenuous, because you are potentially going to be put in a position where you may have to embrace one of those positions. And I think people should know where you stand.
Well, I would sort of tend to disagree with you.
That's okay, that's healthy. I mean, that's not a problem.
Respectfully, because I think there's going to be some more information we're going to have at this time, because the role of somebody on city council is to think about the city, and part of that's going to have to do with how the referendums come down. One of my concerns with the referendums is that it really shouldn't occur that both of them pass, because I think that's going to be a sad commentary on our ability to communicate to the electorate or on the electorate, because rationally both of them should not pass, I don't believe. If they do, well, say there's a commentary there. I'd want to look at the number of votes. I'd want to see what the city attorney had to say and why he had to say it. And then I'd go from there. If I have to make a decision, I'll make it. One thing I've been able to do over a number of years is sit on a number of boards and that, and been blessed with a number of rather difficult decisions, and I don't tend to abstain, but I try to get as much information as I can and deal with the situation as it exists at that time. So at that point in time, I would take a stance. But we're going to know some things then that we don't know now.
When you decided to run for city council, how did you go about making that decision? Because as we've talked about in previous interviews with county board supervisors, this is not something that you just willy-nilly kind of jump into and say, gee whiz, this sounds like kind of a good time. What were the precursors to your decision?
Really, the precursors really began to occur last year, in a sense, in that I was heavily involved, particularly in United Way, in a number of committees, intensely involved. I was involved with some other activities. Those I had chosen to begin to move out of. I had finished my 4th term or something like that as a director over a long period of time. I'd done allocations for over 10 years, had directed that effort in United Way. And so there was a substantial time commitment that I had made to that I no longer had to. 3 of our children are out of the city at this particular point in time. At one point in time, we had several in the city. My grandchildren were here at that time. I spent a good deal of my life playing softball during the summers and used to travel with the softball team. So then I went through several surgeries last summer, some surgical procedures and another one, and had time to think, and I said, what am I going to get involved in next? I've always been involved. From the time I've been here, I've been involved in something. So I had time, I'm going to get involved. So I really thought about a number of things. And then as the fall began to develop, looked at a number of options. One of the things began to occur. I saw where Steve was thinking about not running again. So I actually even talked to him about that. The city is an area where I've been here for 27 years. And I know a lot about the city because I've had a chance to interact with a lot of people through my various kinds of involvements in the city. But there's still a lot of things I don't know. And I thought, here's an opportunity to learn more about something. Here's an opportunity to be involved. Here's also an opportunity maybe to make a difference. We have a family value where the family folks are all involved in activity. My wife's on a couple of boards. My daughter's my stepdaughter's very involved in the city. And so we talk about things that go on in the city. So here was an opportunity to learn more, to run with somebody going. Realistically, I think there's a reasonable chance, I think at least a 50-50 chance I'll have a chance to get elected. Maybe if there were 3 incumbents and Steve was running, I wouldn't be doing this. I haven't been involved in politics since I was in college, so this is a new venture. So, well, there are things that are exciting. You have to try different things. It's a new opportunity.
One of the questions that I have for you is, with being in a management position with the university, as you're probably well aware, the university has a plan for development for the growth of the university as a whole. It's an overlay program. Some of that information has been shared with the city. Some of it has not been updated in quite some time with the city. What is your position on that overlay plan for the development of the university and how it fits with city development, and what do you bring to the table with that?
Okay, in terms of a vision, I think it's great. I think university really, when it comes to the physical aspects of the university, really hasn't changed since the 1960s. And this university is going to move forward. I think it's important for it to do. Also, the university occupies a fair share of land around the university there. So I think it's time to update and prepare for the future. I don't think we can afford to wait forever. It's going to take a number of years. And I'm sure that what happens will be a little bit different with the vision. It's just like any entrepreneurial venture, and I work with a lot of entrepreneurs. You start off with a vision of what it's going to be, kind of a plan. As you begin to work your way through it, it changes somewhat. In terms of what they're looking at, the things I think most people are aware of is the wellness center along the river, which I think will be an enhancement of the river, will be good for the university, will be another resource available in the city for wellness. They're looking at putting up, for the first time in a long time, a new academic building at some point in time, which is necessary to increase the capacity because they really don't have sufficient square footage for the number of students we have at the current time, and I think that's important. There's also another set of plans really on the other side of the river in which they're looking at making some changes in the football stadium, moving the lights back, bringing a track inside, putting a synthetic turf down there, one of the modern synthetic turfs, creating what could be just a wonderful facility for bringing folks to the city. Right now we have a field over there that gets used for 5 or 6, 7 football games for the university, some high school games, and here's an opportunity to maybe bring, you know, state meets here of one type or another, concerts. So that's going on the other side of the river. In terms of the changes, the physical changes with the city, rerouting some of the roads, I think the
closing of potentially high.
Potentially high, although that's been subject to discussion, as I understand it. I'm not on top of that. One time it was proposed that it be closed. Some people raised some questions about it and said maybe we would make it, excuse me, limited access, two-way street. But putting kind of a bypass around the university, I think, is very wise. And I think particularly with the new Wisconsin bridge, it's going to go in and has a chance. I think, though, the city has to obviously be involved in it, because, you know, one of the potentials is obviously the Meritor property down there, which is on the tax rolls. And I think
speaking of the Meritor property, with the Meritor property came a great deal of political fallout. People losing their jobs, being laid off. Now it's catchy.
Sorry.
Pardon me.
I brought it to you.
One of the things that I would like to know about you is a lot of the council members in the last year and a half caught an awful lot of flack when there was all of this stuff going on with Meritor and layoffs and pickets, and the union people at Meritor felt as though city officials should have weighed in or tried to do something, and did not. Didn't do very much. Didn't do anything in many cases. What is your view on something like that? Would you have weighed into what was going on at Meritor, or would you have stepped back and said, you know what, that's private business and I'm not going to do those kinds of things?
In terms of knowing all the specifics about what could have been done, I can't give you a real specific answer. I can say that in general I would have been tempted to keep our hands off until such time as some other things began to happen. But I think when you're getting into dealing with labor and management, that the city, I'm not sure that's the appropriate place for the city to be unless the city is going to engage in some type of activity that's going to have an impact. And then I think the city has to be.
You don't feel it would have
concerned.
been even appropriate for the city as a whole to say to Meritor or to Axletech, as it's called, you know, we value your business being here. These people's jobs are important. We encourage you and implore you to please try and resolve this.
Well,
I mean, that's not really getting in the middle of...
I think in some ways that was, and I think in some ways the university's stance. The issue, and I don't have all the details. You all probably have more details than I do on it. But I can say from a standpoint, I think some of those fundamental issues between labor and management had to do with the business and the business opportunities that were out there. It wasn't two groups of people just contesting. I'm not inside to understand the business. I mean, sometimes layoffs occur because firms aren't making enough money to be able to pay the people. And I don't know.
And then there's sometimes where the bosses are getting 6 figures bonuses and they're still laying people
or more.
And they're still laying people off. Yes, no, I'm aware of that.
Yeah.
And here I don't have the details, but I think first of all, you know, labor and management have to deal with it unless it happens to be that the city is taking some activity. Mm-hmm. The city had gone after something and the cause of that activity is because of the city, then I think the city has responsibilities.
I want to go back, if we could, to OCDC and your grade of them as a B+. And I realize that, you know, you've not been real hands-on involved with them for a while.
Almost 2 decades.
Yeah, but
that's a while.
As an outsider kind of looking in,
yeah.
You know, part of their mission, the whole essence of their being really is to promote and maintain business, and in large part downtown. I'm curious why you would give them a B+ grade when business downtown seems to be leaving in droves. New business that is coming in downtown, people don't seem to know that it's there. The people who have left downtown and longtime staples of downtown, like Sherwin-Williams, businesses like that have never even heard of OCDC or Rob Clayman, the director of that organization. How do you justify a B+ grade when they are, for all intents and purposes, invisible downtown?
Well, I don't know that I'd say they're invisible downtown, because while I have not been involved with it, they've been visible from my stance and where I come from, because I know they've applied for a grant. That was asked to be to get involved in that in terms of putting in an incubator. They have some other grant programs that they're trying to encourage people to get involved in downtown. And it's hard to say over time, what all the causes are of what's going on downtown. It appears to me that they're making some efforts now to make some things happen downtown.
I don't know.
At least, the one area where I wish we could do some more, and I brought it up, is strictly in the entrepreneurial area. I think one of the things I'd like to see is have us build a more entrepreneurial climate within the city. I think there are real efforts on the part of the chamber and a number of other people to work with small businesses, but I think we're at a period of time where we need to really think about some entrepreneurial efforts, where we kind of embrace a concept of entrepreneurialism within the city. I think we need to do it in city government. As we look at the budget, revenues may be rather constant, so we're going to have to get pretty clever on how we deliver services. The same thing's true in the private sector, and I don't think we as a city have put together, or even, and maybe this is an area where OCDC can do a little bit more. I think they're trying to do some things with the development of an incubator. Can focus on trying to put together the ingredients of what it takes to make this an entrepreneurial community. Some people talking about entrepreneurialism within the community. Development of some angel networks, some venture capital.
When you talk about entrepreneurship in regard to the city, and I'll make this very quick because I know we need to wrap up, do you envision that as a privatization of certain services due to the fact that we have limited funds? Are you suggesting that privatization may be the coming answer? And how do you feel about fee structures?
I'm not suggesting that there's one way to do it. I think we need to get a lot of things out on the table and talk about them, and we need to say, okay, as we look to the future, we're going to have to do some things differently than we have done in the past. And so we're going to have to start trying to be creative, put everything out on the table. I think everything goes out on the table. I think we may even have to think more about the revenue side in some entrepreneurial ways. The city is limited, I believe, at the current time, from what I understand, but we got to think about partnerships, public-private partnerships, in ways, cooperative agreements. I mean, need to get in and study, but we need to talk about doing some things differently than we have in the past.
In about 30 seconds, if you can just look into camera 3 then, Burk, and tell people why they should vote for you for City Council.
Okay, I would hope people might support me, because I'm not really a one-issue candidate. Not in this really for any kind of personal gain. This is an opportunity to learn, serve the community. I think I have a very broad-based background, lived on 2 sides of the city, had children go through 6 of the schools in the city. I've had the opportunity to work with a number of businesses, a number of nonprofit organizations. I've either competed or watched competition on every athletic field within the city. So I think I've done about everything. So I think I have a sense of where people throughout the community are coming from.
All right, terrific. Well, thanks very much for being here. Please remember to go to the polls on Tuesday, April 6th. We're going to take a very short break, and when we come back, we'll be joined by incumbent Councilman Paul Esslinger. We'll be right back.
Good evening. Follow me, please.
Imagine what America would be like today if Martin Luther King never had a dream. Help keep the dream alive. To find out more about the Martin Luther King Memorial in Washington, D.C., call or log on now.
Oshkosh Community Access TV2 is your local sports channel. Follow your favorite Oshkosh teams each week as CATV2 presents the high school game of the week. Besides football and basketball, we feature soccer, gymnastics, swimming, wrestling, and volleyball. Sundays at 8, Mondays at noon, and Wednesdays at 8, CATV2 is the place to be for high school sports. The High School Game of the Week, here on Oshkosh Community Access TV2.
I want to
Have an impact.
make a difference.
I want my voice to be heard.
Take matters into your own hands. Smack down your vote for the candidates who represent you and the issues you care about. Make time on Election Day to vote in elections in your community.
Have an impact.
Make a difference.
Let your voice be heard.
To learn more about the candidates where you live, contact the league in your state or community through lwv.org.
Smack down your vote on Election Day.
The Friends of OCAT is a nonprofit group that supports Oshkosh Community Access television programming and facilities. The Friends sponsor membership, underwriting, and fundraising projects. Their mission is to provide quality programming, to plan and implement fundraising activities, to develop a supportive membership, and to raise awareness of OCAT. If you would like to become a member and support Oshkosh Community Access Television, buy an OCAT card and enjoy discounts at many local businesses. Thanks for viewing OCAT.
Hi, and welcome back to the second half of Eye on Oshkosh. I'm Cheryl Hentz, and Melanie Bloechl is here with me, and also we're being joined by Councilman Paul Esslinger from the Oshkosh Common Council. Paul, welcome. You're kind of getting to be a regular person here.
Yeah, I think people are probably getting sick and tired of seeing me.
Well, as we mentioned at the outset of the very first half hour, there are 3 seats that are up for re-election on Tuesday, April 6th. Yours, Frank Towers, and the seat being vacated by the current mayor, Stephen Hentz. You and Frank Tower are seeking re-election, and there are 2 other candidates, one of whom was just here, Burk Tower. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? I think most people have probably heard it, but let's hear it again, and why you're seeking re-election.
Well, briefly, I'm a 38-year lifelong resident of the city of Oshkosh. My mother and father have lived here all their lives. Live out by the airport, behind Pioneer Airport. Graduated in 1983 from Oshkosh West High School. My wife works at Bethel Home here in Oshkosh, and I have a son, Carson, who's 4, going to be 5 in July, and a daughter, Sydney, who's going to be 3 in June. And I guess why I'm running again is, it's just multiple answers for that. I love the job, want to make an impact. I have many concerns about what's going on now, what's going to be happening. I would hope that people would think that I was fiscally conservative on the council, and I'm looking out for their money and where it's spent and how it's spent. Well,
lots of things to talk about in 28 minutes, but one of the first things that I need to bring up is the recent letter that you tried to have your fellow council members sign that was going to our elected representatives in Madison, trying to, in essence, get them to start coming to periodic council meetings and sharing with the council as a whole, as well as sharing it with the citizenry, what they're doing in Madison, how it impacts us here in Oshkosh, that type of thing. All but one refused to sign. Brian Peschel was the only other councilman who agreed to sign that letter. Shamefully so, I think, on the behalf or on the part of the other 5 councilmen. Certainly, I'm speaking for myself here. I applaud your efforts, Paul, and I think that there's a tremendous amount of citizens out there who feel the same way. We have certainly heard from a great number of citizens on the phone, on the streets.
I'm hearing more about you than I did about me when I was on there.
I don't know if that's good or bad.
Well, no, but it is good because these people are really harked off about they're all saying what a lousy thing that was for this council to do. Do you have anything to say about the letter, or do you just kind of share the same disgust that I think a lot of us feel for those other councilmen? I guess
I would share your disgust if and only if when I brought the letter to the council and I wanted them to sign it, and I want to thank Brian Peschel for signing that. The other council members mentioned that they didn't think, for whatever reason, they didn't think it was appropriate for me to have that letter. That wasn't their vehicle for them to contact those individuals. That they thought, private meetings, one-on-one meetings, whatever the case may be, is more appropriate than what I did. And I guess if they can get their message to those individuals that way, then by not signing my letter, that's fine.
But apparently they can't
Well,
get their
but
message
and
through.
here's the tail end of that. What I should have asked the night of the council, because they all gave their opinion whether they wanted to sign or not, the ones that said that the personal approach is better, the question that I should have asked is, that's fine, have you done that? And if you haven't done that, when have you made an appointment to do that with these individuals? And I bet you, outside of Councilmember Peschel, who signed it, I bet you the other 5 would say, I haven't done it, and I don't have any plans of doing it. But that would be my guess, but I could be wrong.
Well, and we'll be, on March 4th, we will be interviewing Frank Tower, and that is already one of the questions I have on my list. He wanted a one-on-one approach. I want to know from him, you know, if he in fact has taken that one-on-one approach yet, and what the response has been. Because if their methods of working with and communicating with these state representatives are so effective, then why is it that we have not seen these people show up in council chambers in forever?
Well, I'm getting a little sick and tired of always hearing from other council members or city staff or anyone in general, we need to do these things behind closed doors, let's make it quiet. You know, if it gets in the paper, if it gets on TV or the radio, it's going to create a fervor. Let it.
It's the people's business,
You're
and it is
darn right it
damn
is.
time that this council start understanding that. And you know, we have mentioned on past shows about possibly recalling people. I've already got the information from the city clerk. I've heard from some people who are interested in pursuing this. And I think, you know, I'm not saying we're going to lead a charge right here and now for recalling council members, but I think it's something that is worthy of exploration.
Well, it's interesting. That was a Tuesday night, that council meeting. I had to be out of town on business Wednesday and Thursday, so my wife and my mother were home with my children during that time, and there were people that phoned in during those days that were just, I could use some words, that they weren't happy, let's put it that way.
With the other council members.
With the other council members and their attitude towards it. So I appreciate those calls, and I love to hear the input. But see, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about input. Isn't it a novel idea? Actually, for me to suggest to invite state representatives to come to the council is a bit embarrassing. I don't need to invite them. You don't need to invite them. That's their job.
Exactly. And speaking of job, Paul, I'm going to give Mel a chance to jump in here because I know she wants to, and she has a right to.
Why, can you see the blood dripping
I can
out of
see
the
the
side of my
steam coming
mouth?
out of your ears.
But I just want to stay on that for a second, because at this most recent council meeting, speaking of doing jobs, you were kind enough to reference something that we put on our website, and it had to do with OCDC. You know, giving some more frequent reports to the council so that the council as a whole and the citizens in this community know what is going on with business and commercial development, in particular in downtown. And when you mentioned that, again, these council members, your fellow counterparts on the council dais, sat there mute. Honest to God, I don't know why they put microphones in front of these people, because half the time they don't speak.
Well, I asked them to comment on it.
And they didn't.
Yeah.
So maybe they don't have a comment, or maybe they don't have a good enough answer. I don't know
Well,
what
although
it is.
in defense of Councilmember Peschel, I talked to him after the meeting, and he said, yeah, I think that's a great idea. Again, I mean, we don't need to invite these people to come in front of us and explain what's going on. I think that should be part of the job.
Well, as you know, we just interviewed Burk Tower, and he's you know, running for one of the seats. Melanie had asked him what he would grade OCDC on their job performance, and he gave them a B+. I think that's a good question that Melanie came up with. What would you grade them, and why?
Not high. I think one of the problems structurally we have, now OCDC used to be funded by Community Development Block Grant funds from the City of Oshkosh, and I believe the dollar amount was $10,000 that the city gave for OCDC to recruit and to retain small business, commercial business in the City of Oshkosh. You know, when you have the budget that OCDC does, and $10,000 is a very small part of that, you're probably going to give as much attention to the dollar amount that you've got coming in. $10,000 is really nothing. And no offense to Mr. Clayman, who runs it, but in my opinion, the job was not getting done. I did see I was in the green room before the show. And
we have a green room.
Yeah, it's, well, director's booth, whatever you want to call it.
We're spending way too much on that city budget. I'm going to write that down right now.
Anyway, you hit it right on. You hit the nail on the head. I mean, people are leaving downtown. They don't know where downtown is. There is no marketing plan for downtown, and you know, the taxpayers are supposed to spend millions of dollars downtown, but we have no marketing plan. And anyone that's in business, which OCDC is part of the Chamber of Commerce, knows that that just doesn't fly. And so, if we're going to be spending millions of dollars downtown, we need to have some type of plan. And I know when College Avenue was being redone, the businesses and the mayor of Appleton got together and had some ads. I know they had TV ads. I think they had some radio ads saying, they're ripping up in front of our street, but come on down here. We've got great deals, and we just don't do anything.
The same thing goes on in Neenah. It went on. It goes on anytime they have major road construction, and in fact, it is going on even now as we tape this show. The city works very closely with businesses when the road is being torn up and traffic's being rerouted. They work very closely.
Yeah.
Our city does nothing like that.
I think the city of Oshkosh needs to have, like we have Chamco for industrial. I think the city of Oshkosh needs to have an individual that's dedicated to that position, and someone that myself as a council member or the city manager can call up at any time and find out what's going on. I even said at the council meeting, it's a bit embarrassing that a city council member hears from someone on the street about what business is coming into town. I have no idea what they're talking about. That's a little bit embarrassing. The information sometimes that we get from the city staff is inadequate. So there's a disconnect there, and I think that we need someone dedicated for that business.
I couldn't agree with you more. At least when you are hearing from Joe Schmo on the street, you've mentioned businesses coming into the community. I actually heard about businesses going out of the community. And I did my own research because I had heard a lot of complaints and had witnessed only an annual report from OCDC just before budget time that said, hey, we did all these wonderful things, and sometimes we're taking credit for things that they didn't even do. And so I decided that I was going to do my own little research project and identified businesses that I wasn't aware were going out of business, but happened to go to patronize them and saw the big going out of business banner on the front of the building. And I asked to speak with managers, and if there was an owner, I asked to speak with owners and specifically asked them, do you know what OCDC is? Have you ever heard of the Oshkosh Commercial Development Corporation? If a blank stare gives you cause to wonder, this was worse, like, lady, what are you talking about? And what does that have to do with me? Mm-hmm. And then I mentioned Rob Clayman by name as the director, and asked if anyone from the city or OCDC or whomever had contacted them to see if there was anything that we could do as a community to talk with owners, if they were, not local owners, but, out-of-state owners, to keep these businesses here. These people had never heard of him, didn't know what the Oshkosh Commercial Development Corporation was. Now, you talked about the money that the city was giving to OCDC to have contracted services to retain and hopefully recruit. It was more like 12.5, I believe, for a long time, and then it got cut down because you guys keep whittling down the cost of the land that you're selling, allowing them to sell on our behalf, the taxpayers.
I'd love to talk to you about some executive sessions that we have about prices of property. And as you know, Melanie, being in those executive sessions, I was on the council with you.
Yes.
When those come up, I'm here to tell you, I can't really discuss it, but I'm here to tell you in those executive sessions, I'm sick and tired of selling things below what we're asking for.
Well, and the thing that I find frustrating is that we are competing with the open market, which we all talk about. Let the market drive, let the market drive, let the market drive the downtown development, let the market drive wherever we're going to have the box retail stores. Well, that seems to work really well when you have the right scenario and everybody's happy hearing that the market should drive. Mm-hmm. Why in the hell isn't the market driving land costs in the business park? Instead, we're competing with the private entities and the private realtors, And we keep lowering our costs because we seem to have a guy who can't sell a piece of land in a business park with all the amenities. I mean, short of going up to somebody and saying, would you like to take this land for free? I don't know how else we could be successful.
Well,
Or for $1?
You jog my memory.
We've done that.
I remember asking the city manager at a council meeting, I don't know, 6, 8, 10 months ago, maybe even a year or more, if I could at least get the minutes of the OCDC meetings. I've not received one of them, and one of two things is happening: either the city manager isn't getting them for me, or he's not getting them. And I think it's I think that he's not getting them, because every time I ask the city manager for some information, I get it from him. So we can't even get it, and you know.
Then they shouldn't be able to use the title of the Oshkosh Commercial Development Corporation and lead people to believe that this organization is working at the behest of the city of Oshkosh and thereby their taxpayers.
Now Chamco on the industrial side has come to the council at some varying times, has met in executive sessions with us, and I've given him calls, asked him questions, and I've gotten some straight answers. Sometimes I may like them, sometimes I don't, but I've gotten some straight answers. So in defense of Doug Pearson at Chamco, I have heard from him, and I have had conversations with him.
Let's talk about public-private partnerships, because when Burk Tower was on the half hour previous to you, he believes in, you know, downtown redevelopment, a strong economic base, youth development, you know, the Chamber of Commerce. I think those are things that people can buy into within reason. He also spoke about public-private partnerships and how we're going to have to become more creative in the next budget cycle. Now, some of the public-private partnerships that we've witnessed in the city of Oshkosh thus far, with regard to the downtown redevelopment, to me, from my perspective, looking at it as an outsider looking in, have been an abysmal failure. When I think public-private partnership, public means just that. You're using taxpayers' dollars to supplant a certain amount of those costs. Private is private industry, individuals, what have you, making donations, contributions, whatever. What I've seen happening is those kind of partnerships being formulated. However, the public portion, there's not discussion about where that money is going to be going, except by the individuals in the private partnership that drive where their dollars are going to go. And guess what? They get to take our money with them.
Right, and they all have these individual conversations with the people that that run the city. And
where was the conversation about the stage that's going to be built on the riverfront? Where was that discussion? I mean, I understand there was a comprehensive plan for downtown redevelopment, but it is just like the comprehensive plan for the city of Oshkosh. They call it a blueprint for a reason, because it needs to ebb and flow depending on money, depending on times, depending on contamination issues that present themselves. Was the downtown redevelopment plan by LDR, was that not just a comprehensive plan? Or was it in the minds of some of those council members that we go right down that line, spending millions of dollars and being able to check each of these items off?
Well, I remember when LDR was here, they had a presentation over at the hotel, and they presented that plan to everyone in the audience, and I believe the lead engineer, I think his name was Cy, said, here's the plan, you know, things can be added, things can be taken out. It happens over a period of many, many years, but you know, this is what you can attain through the course of several years. And I think you're right. I think most of the council has looked at that and said, we need to get that done, and we need to get it done tomorrow. And you know, I'm all in favor of redeveloping downtown, but it's all about how you do it and how wisely you spend that money. And we've all talked about that WPS site, which is just the biggest waste of money. Not that I don't think that that property is beneficial to the city. It certainly is. But it's my argument that we didn't need to spend, by the time we pay off the bond, it'll be well over $1 million for contaminated property that they couldn't give away, basically. So, you know, yeah, I think you're right. I think they looked at that plan and they said, here it is. this isn't the blueprint. This is, no pun intended, this is set in stone, and let's run with it.
Is there something that you feel can be done, or would you be willing to go forward asking that in the event that there's more public-private partnerships, which obviously from a creative standpoint in budgeting during crisis periods is going to have to be a staple of how we survive. I mean, we're going to have to derive more dollars from the private enterprises. That these discussions stop happening over at the Oshkosh Community Foundation office building or the Chamber of Commerce office building or whatever closed door, that there's this handful of people that think that they know what's best for the city and what the majority, and by the way, they're not elected officials.
No.
Not a one of them are an elected official, including our community development people that are employees of the city of Oshkosh. Do you not think that we need to be making a bigger stink about these conversations being held in public forums to actually get feedback from people, especially when property tax dollars are being used in conjunction with private dollars?
That's a critical question, Melanie, and you know, I don't know. I mean, it takes people to call these council members and say, stop. You know, we can't afford to be doing what we're doing. Let's take things, you know, one piece at a time. If it makes sense spending money, let's spend the money. And we had the Leach Foundation who ponied up $1 million of their money, but contingent upon that was the taxpayers had to pay $1 million for their property.
Well, and
so,
the other point, Paul, is, and I'll keep this brief, the other point is that the design of this structure, the taxpayers had no input. There's a special group of people who get to decide what our community is going to look like.
And if you remember, at 2 or 3 council meetings ago, I suggested to the mayor, because there was 2 subcommittees involved in that. One was a group that was looking at, you know, how the band shell should be formed. You know, Waterfest was involved, the city manager, and some other structural engineers on, you know, how that should be all engineered. And there was another subcommittee about the whole park in general, what should be on there. And I suggested to the mayor, and subsequently wrote him an email, that why don't we get some people, you know, east of CP there, involved in that process so they can come down. I mean, that's their neighborhood. Mm-hmm. Those are the people that hear, by and large, Waterfest, you know, in the summertime, past 10 o'clock. Let's get some of these people involved so they at least know what's going on. They can tell their neighbors how it's going to be, or they can give their input of what they think. And I sent that off to the mayor, and I asked him 2 weeks after that if he received my email. He said he was having problems with his email from the city, and I haven't heard from him since then. That was a couple months ago. So do I think people need to get involved? Absolutely. We need to get our state legislators involved. We need to get other people involved. We need to get people coming to the polls. But quite frankly, if people don't come to the polls and people don't pick up the telephone, don't pick up a pen to write people, it's going to continue.
I think one of the reasons, though, that they don't, Paul, is because they are sick and tired of these council members, yourself and Brian Peschel, accepted from that, of course, who don't listen. You can talk until you're blue in the face, and these people just, it goes in one ear and out the other, and they still get up on the council dais and they do whatever it is they want to do.
That's because they have the power swing.
Well,
they've got the 4-3 swing, and that's why these elections are important.
Exactly, and that is why things have to change, or these people have to be recalled. But I want to talk, you know, you talk about spending public money on things. Our time's winding down real quickly here, but very briefly, the money that was spent for the inspections department study.
Oh,
now, that was money that did not have to be spent, but yet taxpayer dollars were spent, and yet Jackson Kinney, our Director of Community Development, does not seem to feel that that study and its results should be released. Why, and what do we need to do to get that study released? Briefly.
Why? I'll tell you, I'm so sick and tired of this inspection department fiasco. I'm not saying I'm sick and tired of people contacting me and saying there's a problem. I'm happy for that. But we have, Melanie, you've dealt with this years ago. We are no better off today than we were years ago. In fact, I would argue it's probably worse. I think what we need to do, I contacted the state a year or two ago. They said that they would be willing to come up here and assess the situation. I know the city manager is going to meet with his staff, make some corrections, recommendations. If that doesn't fly within a year, if we still have that problem, I say we take this right down to the state. They come up here and they assess the situation, because quite frankly, anything that, if a developer has a problem with the inspections department, they can take it to the state and they're the final authority. So let's get the final authority up here now to assess the situation.
Well, that sounds like a good plan. Now, also on the subject of the inspections department, I'm going to make this brief, and you may have to look into this for us, but you know, there is an ordinance in this city. Well, there's a lot of complaints that certain developers, certain people get preferential treatment. Case in point, the 100 block, a development by Ben Ganther. Now, there's an ordinance on the books in this city that talks about for lease signs, rental type signs, that you can only have one sign per parcel, and there are restrictions as to how large that sign can be. Can someone, and you'll have to look into this perhaps, but I would like to know why it is that Mr. Ganther is allowed 3 signs on that particular parcel of property, and no one is doing anything about it, and the Community Development Department is aware of it. Please look into that for us, because there is a situation where certain developers seem to be favored sons down at City Hall, and it's not right.
Go figure.
And I don't know how you can possibly enforce any other ordinances against other ordinary citizens when you're not enforcing them even-handedly with everyone.
I would agree.
Issues that you want to pursue if you're reelected, what might they be?
Yeah, we need to stop. And I voted for the fee systems that we have for the garbage and things like that, to keep a flat tax rate. We're done with that. I'm not going to be in favor of too many, if at all, any more of that. I'm scared to death next year of our budget. Our folks down in Madison with I don't know what's going to happen to this shared revenue that we have now. Probably more is going to be gone. We need to buy things. We need police cars. We need employees. I have no idea. I'm scared to death of it. So I guess I'm just going to try to stay the course and do the best that I can do, and try to keep people's money in their pockets so they can spend it elsewhere.
Well, real quickly, why don't you tell people in camera number 3 there why they should vote for you on Tuesday, April 6th?
Well, I would hope that you would vote for me. I hope that you found that I've done a good job on the council. I have watched your money, listened to you. I have given respect to the residents of the city of Oshkosh. And on April 6th, I would hope that I could continue doing that for you.
Great. Paul, thanks very much for being here. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And we appreciate your service on the council. And thanks to Burk Tower for joining us in the first half hour. Thank you folks at home very much for joining us. Remember to check out our website, eyeonoshkosh.com. Visit the community section there. Lots of cool things there for you to see. For Melanie Bloechl, I'm Cheryl Hentz. We'll see you next time. Take good care. Until we see you next time, keep your eye on us. We've got our eye on Oshkosh.
Thank you.